This is the Random and Nintendo Podcast, episode 58 for March 4th, 2025. I'm one of your hosts, Kevin. To my virtual left, as always, is Jason.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going all right. And to my virtual left, the ever so beautiful Angel.
I can't complain.
You can't complain.
Also, apparently we're both on your left, but he's more beautiful. So I feel especially shut out here because I'm just the you did. I'm just the leftover on the left. I'm the leftover,
Somehow,
I guess.
I didn't
That's
even.
fine. I accept.
I just thought you said right. I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure you
fine.
said left twice. Yeah.
It's all based on perspective, right? Like if I turn around a full 180,
that's true.
Angel would be on my left.
Now, can we go back to that triangle we were talking about a couple of? No, I'm kidding.
Did we establish last episode that apparently I don't pay enough attention and said Jason's what were we talking about? I was gonna say the Nitro Run. The racing game. I already forgot what it's called.
The racing game. That's
Ridge Racer. There you go.
Ridge Racer.
Ridge Racer.
What about Ridge Racer?
Yeah, was that last episode where I just completely missed what you were talking about, even though I wasn't?
I believe it was 2 episodes ago.
Yeah,
I believe it was 2 episodes ago.
That was a couple episodes ago?
Yes, I believe it was when I was talking about how Ridge Racer 64 was on Switch Online, and I was like, oh my god, it's Ridge Racer DS, which I used to play so much. And I've played more of Ridge Racer 64 since then, and can confirm it is very much Ridge Racer DS, and it's hitting that spot I was hoping to find something to hit. It just took the same game on a different platform 2 decades later, but we got there.
You're still playing more of, I'm guessing you're still playing of Echoes of Winston?
Not that much, to be honest. I mean, not that you're surprised. I did just pick up the physical version of Bakaru, the platformer from Goodfeel, as in Nintendo's developer of Yoshi's Woolly World and stuff. They made their own platform. I talked about the demo last fall. Physical release came out the other day. I'll probably have impressions of the full game next episode, but I'm excited to dive into that because the demo was actually quite good and throwing back to the era of that sort of like N64 GameCube platformer.
I eagerly await.
As you should.
Nice. How has everybody been over these last 2 weeks?
Well, to be honest, I'm a bit of a Conan Comedown today because as of this recording, I had a Conan high and I'm coming down. He hosted the Oscars yesterday, and as Team Coco for life over here, I was looking forward to it. And the ramp up, there was a bunch of publicity around it, and he was everywhere for a few minutes and was doing a lot more stuff, and then it happened, and I have not seen very many of the movies that were at the Oscars this year. The most I've seen is what we've talked about on this podcast in the past 12 months. But I was there, people cheer for a movie to win. I was cheering for Conan, and I was very happy, and it was great. It was like it really felt actually kind of like the late night days all over again. Like they did some Left Brain stuff, and it was. They're little not winks and nods, but they're like, if you're a longtime Conan fan, he hit a lot of beats of a lot of different things of Conan's different eras of television. He did a vaudeville style song like the Monorail song from The Simpsons. He did a bit with Nick Offerman reading stuff, which from the more recent TBS show, they had a whole thing with Nick Offerman reading tweets by young female celebrities. So they kind of nod to that. They did some Left Brain stuff with a sandworm playing chopsticks on the piano. So that was something. But no, it's just it was really fun to kind of have Conan back on TV and have all these different Conan vibes back in such strong ways. So
they're saying it was like a subpar Oscars.
No, I'm saying it was great, and Kevin, you'd appreciate. He even made a Kendrick Drake reference, a reference to the beef, since I know you're invested in this beef.
I saw the opening monologue. I
not a fan.
Enjoyed it. I think I could have done without the musical number at the end.
And that was just straight up, like I said, kind of Monorail song nod, but.
I still could have done without it, and
that's fair.
And then I saw that crack, the Drake crack, which funny.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just I thought he would host the Oscars and be like, I'm Conan hosting the Oscars, but instead he was like, hi Oscars, you're now in an episode of Late Night with Conan O'Brien from 2004. in terms of like the vibe he was going for a lot of it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So that's how I've been, is coming down off that, because now we're back to Conan just being on podcast for a while. So, and in a dramatic role in a movie later this year, not kidding. He plays a therapist, like a serious therapist, not a joke therapist, in a movie with Rose Byrne. So that's his next new thing. But anyway, that's how I've been. Not to take over your question.
All right. How about you, Angel?
Fortunately, not as exciting as Jason. I mean,
Not
that's
as exciting
actually...
as this come down.
We can't all have a Conan come down.
Yeah, I don't know if I want one, but I mean, honestly, when I saw that he was hosting the Oscars, that did make me kind of happy. That almost made me want to watch the Oscars, or almost made me consider watching the Oscars. I still didn't, but I mean, that's saying a lot, considering
You don't necessarily have to watch the Oscars. You could just watch the opening monologue and just be.
It's like 18 minutes on YouTube. Yeah.
Well, regardless, like, seek out any amount of it. We'll just
sure.
Like, yeah.
That's fair.
Which I'm sure I'll see. I mean, I ran into that Kendrick Lamar clip that you mentioned without even trying. Like, it just, just came into my circle or whatever. So I guess, yeah. I mean, honestly, like, the biggest thing I had going is something very, very petty and small. And that was the realization that a very specific Kirby song, Vegetable Valley from Nightmare in Dreamland, is one of the few, if not, one of the very, very few songs in the Nintendo Music app that you can't extend to repeat on loop. Like, almost every song, with, very few exceptions, because some songs are made to end and not really loop. Yeah, for some reason that one just doesn't. And it's really upsetting, because I love the Vegetable Valley track. But, nope. Butter Building, yeah. Like, Frozen Sherbet Land, yeah, but not Vegetable Valley. And that song is like a minute long too. Like, they could have, I don't know. It was just kind of annoying, because that song does naturally loop in the game it's from, and every other Kirby song around it loops, but for some reason that specific one doesn't. And I don't know. I don't even.
I love the bitterness. I love the bitterness crossed with the names of these songs. Like you're like, man, they do it with Butter Valley. They do it with like all these like silly what's the word where you have the two letters?
Alliteration?
That match. Thank you. All these alliteration names about vegetables and food, and yet Vegetable Valley has let you down. Like, I get what you're saying. That is weird, but it's just funny.
Like, Fossil Falls is a long song. Like, from Mario Odyssey. Like, a lot of these tracks, I will sometimes just skip to the next one once it starts to loop. There are some exceptions where I'll just hear it as many times, but don't necessarily want to exceed the 3 minutes. But for a Kirby track, which usually are, like I said, are like 40 seconds long, like, a loop is almost part of it. It's like, I can't think of a food at the top of my head, but I know there are some where you're served that item in like quantities of two. Mm-hmm. Because that is like the perfect amount. Like, 1 is way too little, 2 is just right, 3 is just if you just want to gorge on it. And yeah, for whatever reason, this one just got shafted. I don't know why, but yeah, that's pretty much outside of just being like, wow, I can't believe we're already in March. February felt both fast and really short.
It is the shortest month,
and yet it felt long. I don't know. Yeah, it felt just right, but I'm still surprised it's March already.
While we're on the topic of Nintendo Music, why haven't they done the thing where they release songs for games as the game comes out? That seems like I was saying this in like September, August, October, whenever this thing first launched and we talked about it on the podcast, like, it seemed, or shortly thereafter, it seemed like such a shoo-in to be like, hey, you can pick up Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, and guess what? Here's the music of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD in your Nintendo Music app. And because of the no spoiler feature, you don't have to hear the boss music if you don't want to. But you can listen to all the tracks you love from playing the game. Like, you're at home, you play the game. You're out, you listen to the music. Why did they not do that? Why are they not doing that? It's such an obvious...
I'm going to take a wild guess and say, hey, if you are really into the music, you are most likely, let's say for something like Donkey Kong Country Returns, especially since it's a since it's a what do you call it?
A port?
Since it's an upgrade or whatever you want to call it.
A remaster, yes.
A remaster. Maybe you aren't incentivized to buy the game since the soundtrack is already out there.
Interesting. So if people are getting it for the music and then the game to go with it. All right, I guess a better example would be like if there's a new game. Like I made the point about this with Brothership. So I guess we talked about this in October going into November. But I made the point with like Mario and Luigi Brothership. Like that would be a great way to like let people dip their toe in Mario and Luigi Brothership. And nope. They don't even sync them up with new games coming to Switch Online.
Kevin has like a really good point. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, just because I'm like, for some reason, I just haven't purchased Brothership yet. And
if you had the music, you wouldn't?
Well, no, not necessarily. But like, while I love that series, I'm not necessarily in a hurry to get it. But I know if the music was available, I would be even less in a hurry to get it.
That's interesting. I would not have guessed it would swing that way. I thought it would swing the other way, and people would be like, "Oh, this is a cool soundtrack. Maybe I should check out the game too."
I definitely would love to hear it in context one day, but I feel like I listened to it, and because like I really love the video game music. Like I probably spend as much time with some of the music, if not more, playing that than the actual game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like its own experience. Like after listening to probably what would be all of Brothership, I'd like sit down and be like, "Oh man, all right, experience that." It's almost like I ate a very substantial demo of the game. Like it would hold me over for a lot longer. It's not replacing it, but I would be like, "Oh yeah, I could get it next year." I mean, I already basically did that without the music.
I see. Interesting. You know what? Maybe this is why I don't work on Nintendo Music. Yeah. Maybe this is why I'm not employed at Nintendo.
There's a lot of factors in play, like just the limited amount of time I have to even play games at all. So, any amount that I can experience that game without having to worry about actually playing it is kind of a win. Like Monster Hunter Wilds came out this weekend. I love that franchise. Been waiting for it all year, or since it was revealed. I only got to play like maybe an hour most of that time was spent customizing my character. So I maybe only played like 15 minutes of actual like gameplay, like all weekend. Like I think it was technically available to play Thursday night because of the whole midnight thing. So Thursday through Sunday, I was only able to set aside like I said, an hour. So,
did you get to the cheese naan, which is like a cultural phenomenon over in Japan now?
Like I said, I just got through like 15 minutes. Like I don't even think I'm.
Well, is the cheese naan at the beginning? I don't know.
I guess
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. So I guess not.
All these restaurants in Japan are starting to like promote that they sell cheese naan because there's a scene in the game where someone's like tearing a piece of cheese naan, like Indian bread with cheese in it, and it looks really good and it's rendered really well.
Oh, so, I guess I don't know what cheese naan is.
Well, naan bread, Naan, is like a kind of a flat bread of sorts that you can order at Indian restaurants. Like like in Santa Barbara, we had an Indian to-go place called Non-Stop, but it was a pun. So it was Naan. Anyway, and there's like you can put cheese in it, or right? I love a good pun. You put cheese in it or garlic in it. Garlic's a little more common usually, but I guess this cheese naan has been rendered very well. Looks very delicious in the game. It's almost like an inverted pizza. It's like the cheese is in the bread instead of on top of it. And now all these restaurants in Japan are like, we sell cheese naan because it blew up over the last few days.
Gotcha. For some reason, when you said cheese naan, the naan part didn't process as naan the bread, just as a part of the word of cheese. Like, what is this version of cheese?
Almost sounds like anti-cheese, cheese naan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So gaming is just in a weird space with me right now, but. We got there. I mean, that's not to say I haven't beaten other games, because I just have to very consciously set time aside for it. It's not just cool, I'm home, let's just play some games. But we'll get to that later.
Or do we get to it now?
Wait, before we get to it, we never got a chance to hear how you've been, Kevin.
There's a reason why. I've been all right. Oh boy, I've been terribly busy with work. Tomorrow I'm going to be on my 11th straight day of work, essentially.
Oh, jeez.
Mm-hmm. It is what it is. I knew what I got myself into when I took the position. But thankfully, after tomorrow, So starting Wednesday up until pretty much the following Saturday, I am not going to be as busy as I have been. As a matter of fact, like work is going to slow down to a crawl. So I'll finally be able to watch some more movies, maybe enjoy some more video games. I've been really meaning to get to Final Fantasy Rebirth again on the PC, which I haven't touched in like a month now. So yeah, just have to survive tomorrow, and tomorrow should be an easy day at work. But just got to survive tomorrow, and then I'm chilling for about a week and a half. So looking forward to that.
Nice.
Yeah, but thanks for asking. But now let's go back to Angel. Tales of Symphonia. I feel like we've talked about this already.
Yeah, I brought it up when I believe we were like halfway through the game. Mainly because I was just kind of like, I don't know if enthralled is the right word, but I was pleasantly somehow surprised by how good the story really was. It's almost like, you remember, you have the nostalgia for a game, like, like, oh man, Tales of Symphonia was really good. And as you're playing it, you're like, damn, like, this lives up to it. If anything, like, I thought the story, like, surpassed my expectations that my nostalgia had, which, when that happens, like, I feel like that's, like, a real treat. Like, that's just, like, you almost get to, like, relive playing it for the first time. Because it was that long. Like, it was I don't even know, over 10 years since I played it.
Oh, since you played it. Because I say it came out 21 years ago, I believe.
Yeah, I did play it a little initially when it first came out, but we didn't get very far. It wasn't until like I think like the first year of college that I actually beat it, like first or second year. And yeah, like story wise, damn, like yeah, it surpassed those expectations. Like I loved it, loved it. But man, yeah, this is where I think it was Kevin that coined the term, which I think like fit it perfectly, or this way to describe a game. Like it's basically like a 10 out of 10 game in the body of like a 6 to 7 out of 10 game. So it's like we'll say 7, because Jesus, some of these, especially towards like the end, like a lot of these temples and puzzles are just excruciatingly tedious, and man, like they almost detract from it. Like just when you're like, oh my god, this is like getting to my breaking point, just because of how often you have to go back and forth to do like just a very repetitively easy puzzle, but you just keep going because just when it's about to like really, take you off, like, you get through it and then the story progresses and you almost forget about it right away. It's kind of crazy. Like it's almost like even as I'm describing it now, I have to remind myself like what those puzzles were, because in the moment I remember feeling a lot of frustration and a lot of just like borderline boredom, just like oh my god, like I really don't want to have to, like, as soon as you figure out what the mechanic is, like there's one towards the end where you start the temple. It's kind of designed like a little maze, except you can see the whole maze from like afar. You just know like, oh god, like these pathways are long just to get from point A to point B to point C, but you have to retraverse those a lot. You basically have to go through the whole dungeon looking for pink flowers, because right at the entrance they established that, all right, if I grab a pink flower and jump on this log and press the ring button, I blow a whistle and this pig hits a tree. So now you have to go and do that to every single pink flower you find. There's like maybe 4 or 5 of them. And they're spread out just far enough away from each other that you have to go through the whole area, the entire temple area. And it takes longer than you would expect for a character to jump onto a log, to blow the whistle, to hear the pig come in and charge, hit it, fade to black so that it goes back to controlling mode. Like, that already is tedious. And then after you do all that, you grab a seed, you go back to the entrance, you plant it, it gives you a blue flower. Now you have to do the same thing again, except this time it's an eagle that picks you up, takes you to another section of this temple that you couldn't go to before. do a little thing there, blow the thing again, the eagle takes you back, do that like 3 to 4 times until you find another seed, take that back to the entrance, now you get a white flower, then you do that to, manipulate some fish and that are also spread out throughout the dungeon. So you're just retraversing a lot of it, waiting for these animals to do their thing. It doesn't even feel like you're solving anything. You're just kind of, you will get through the dungeon if you just interact with the flower in all the places it tells you to interact with the flower at one point or another. So it's just like a long loading screen. And then you're finally done with it, and you're like, finally, and then, then the story continues. But outside of that, like I said, as soon as we beat the game, pretty much like after each session, some of the sting of those dungeons remains, but they quickly get washed away just by the story and just like what's happening in the plot with the developing characterization of, Lloyd and Genus and Colette and the main characters. To the point that, yeah, like I said, I hadn't played it in 10 years. I had completely forgotten about all the annoying tedium of those dungeons. Like, did not remember that at all. And even now, like, it's starting to fade, and all that's really remaining is just how great that story was. If anything, like what my brother and I kept talking about, because I played it with him in its entirety, was like how amazing a modern remake of this game would be. Like, it doesn't have to be on the technical, graphical, innovative scale of like a Final Fantasy VII remake, but it would just, keep the story as it is, or, maybe touch it up in a few places where it may need it, but just fix like the the dungeon flow. Some of the dungeons are fine, but those tend to be really short and straightforward. But man, if they fix that, Jesus, this would be an amazingly fun RPG. It's just unfortunate that it's kind of bogged down by some of the progression. But yeah, Tales of Symphonia Remastered. It both lived up to my nostalgia for it, but also crushed some of it. So yeah, it was an interesting one. Definitely, but at the end of the day, I don't regret it. I would still recommend it to people, but I would definitely give them that, heads up. It's like, yeah, just stick through it. I think the story's worth it.
Is there any thought into you guys going to the next one?
Oh yeah. We're just continuing on. So like the next one, at one point we were going by
release order, right?
Release order. But I mean, I guess that is what we're technically doing now, because even though Tales of Vesperia Remastered was released most recently, that is the next one we're doing. That's like the one that was on Xbox 360, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna do that one next, just so that we get a gameplay progression of sorts. Because we went from right before Symphonia, we played Xillia, which is a significantly newer game, and boy, did we feel some of those. I guess the
quality of life changes.
Yeah, the quality. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like for instance, like they learned at some point to keep the camera like Smash Brothers, make sure every character is always on screen. And yeah, we took that for granted because Tales of Symphonia does not care about anyone else except the main, whoever's player one.
So the fact they didn't accommodate that in the remaster is crazy to me. I mean, I get it, but it's crazy.
I would say like 60 to 70% of the time, my brother just couldn't see where his character was, so he just had to kind of go through his memorized moveset, or I would have to make sure like, oh dang it, like he can't see himself, I'm going to target a character near him just so that he can see what who he's playing. So that's definitely something huge. And also just like how the mana system, how the inventory is managed, like a lot of those things were definitely like streamlined and improved over time, which is really nice. And also just I guess budget, because they didn't go back and add anything, so which makes sense. I guess I don't know if every voice talent is still available, but Tales is kind of known for having, I guess, these like what they call skits, just like little, you're walking along, you'll see a little notification appear, like press the options button, or in this case a touchpad, to trigger just some dialogue. Sometimes it could be as simple as like, oh, what do you think about that cloud? What does it look like to you? And then they'll say something. You know, like it just little character development moments. You don't have to interact with them, but we like to. They're usually fun and pretty quick. But in Symphonia, none of them are voiced. And we forgot how big of a deal it was that they were voiced in every other game after that. Because, yeah, when they're not voiced, it's just like basically the music fades for some reason, and you're just like listening to nothing. So you just have to read it. And you can't like skip the text to progress when you're done reading it because it's kind of keeping the text there at the same rate that they would be talking it, which, yeah, it's not really great. With one thing that did kind of alleviate it is that the Japanese version of the game, well, you could add, you could play the game with Japanese dialogue, that is fully voiced, as well as a bunch of other like, cutscenes of the game where almost every cutscene is voiced in English, but there are some we'll call narrative moments where it's not quite a cutscene. You like progress through the narrative moment just by, pressing the X button over and over again. And some of those are voiced, some of those aren't. It's just kind of like, I guess, a level of importance. There was one that I was like, yeah, you think this one would be voiced, like given the severity of the moment. But in Japanese, those were voiced, but in English they weren't. So having the game fully voiced in later games is a godsend. So definitely another thing that would really benefit from a full remake.
Everything about it does sound very much like, yup, this was a game from 2004.
Yeah.
Like the skeleton, the like bones of the game are definitely like 3 years into the life of GameCube and PS2 or 4 years of PS2 and Xbox. Like it's that era. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think is, kind of a testament to the game that we could still find so much fun and joy in it, and even just despair in the story, because it managed to be still one of the darkest Tales games plot wise compared to at least all the ones we've played so far, which I think have been 3 other ones: Abyss, Graces, Exilia. And yeah, that didn't pull any punches. Like I feel like it deals with just about like every, I guess, like hot button topic you could think of, in its own way. But
anti-Semitism.
We'll
yeah, every topic.
Yeah, it does. There is a lot.
They fight for transgender rights. I hope, is that what you're saying? Like what? What?
There's a lot of metaphors that imply a lot of that, but yeah. I mean, this one is probably the most like trying to like replicate. Like there's like human camps. There's like people that get like tortured and turned into things. Just because of their race. There's like half elves, so they're like, they're hated by both humans and elves because they're neither, and that plays like a big role in the story. And there's basically, yeah, lots of attempted genocides, but yeah, it's a very interesting story, but done, I would say, overall pretty well executed. But yeah, so one of my favorites. I think it's probably still tied with Abyss, if not edges it out a little. But yeah, that was Tales.
Nice. Yeah, I remember playing that game. Did I ever tell you the story of when I went to my buddy's house to play that game? Or maybe it wasn't necessarily my buddy. I went to.
Yeah, it's like that's when he stopped being my buddy.
No. So I went to my buddy Gio's house, just to hang out. This was right after high school, and his older brother, was playing Tales of Symphonia, and I hadn't played it then, but I had seen reviews of it like on XPlay. And I remember talking to him. And I was like, "Oh, is that Tales of Symphonia?" He's like, "Yeah, man, it's a great game. I love this game." He was probably, I don't know, about 15 or 16. And then he goes, "You want to play?" And I didn't know it was multiplayer. I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll play." And we played specifically, I guess, the Water Temple. And the boss at the Water Temple, like some siren-esque character.
Mm-hmm. The Water Spirit.
Yeah, the Water Spirit. Yeah, and we played through it. And we finished it, and he goes, "Man, wasn't that cool?" And I was like, "Yeah, that was pretty cool." And he goes, "Do you want to play it again?" And I'm like, I Yeah, sure.
Wait,
why not?
The same temple?
Yeah. So the same temple, and so he reloaded the save file, and we played again, right? and we play through it, and we finish it, and I was like, man, that was really cool. And then he looks at me and he goes, "You want to run it back?" I go, yeah, sure. And so we played it for a third time. He loaded up the save, and he was just getting hyped the entire time. He was like, man, and this is back when I didn't really appreciate like video game soundtracks. But he was getting really into the music. He's like, isn't this score so cool? And I'm like, yeah, man, this score, this is really cool. And then we finally beat it the third time, and I'm just like praying to myself, like, please don't make me play this one more time. And then he was like, yeah, man, that was cool. Anyways, I gotta bounce. Sorry that we can't play it a fourth time. And I was like, oh, don't worry. He's like, next time, all right, bro? And I'm like, yeah, sure, next time. It was so bizarre.
So funny.
Yeah.
Do you remember there's like, I mean, it predates that, but when you're like a little kid and you don't have a memory card or you didn't have whatever and you would just play the same couple first levels of a game. Am I the only one who did this? Like I didn't have the right memory card or I didn't have something and I would just play or I couldn't get past something and I would just keep playing it over and over and it was fine. I remember Return of the Jedi for Game Boy, like in Super Game Boy. I played that first level a bunch and nothing else.
Wait, Super Game Boy? Wait, a Game Boy game that didn't have internal memory?
I don't know. Maybe I sucked at that level. But I remember that happening. That was one. The other, that was more memory card, was like N64
because all
stuff.
Super Nintendo games had internal memory. The only Star Wars game I could think of just straight up didn't have save points. So
well, I did, to be fair, I did preface this with, remember if you didn't have a memory card or if you just were bad at it. I did say that a minute ago. But no, there were a bunch of N64 and mostly N64 that I never got. I never owned a memory card for the controller for N64. Ever. I don't think. Owned Rumble Packs, but not the memory card. So there were so many games, especially rental games, I would just play the same parts. And I was fine with it.
Yeah, neither did we. So we were kind of in the same boat we played Earthworm Jim. But I think eventually we beat it. But I remember we had to rent it a few times and we did play the same level. The only game we owned where that was an issue was Rugrats in Paris for N64. And that game was just too long to beat in one setting. So, yeah, that wasn't going to happen. But, yeah.
Another thing you said, Kevin, that sparked some nostalgia, X-Play. I used to love everything on G4.
Oh yeah, X-Play was great. X-Play has not, especially early X-Play has not aged well at all.
Oh, I'm sure it hasn't. It's everything of that early 2000s era, like the edginess that it was like pop culture cool at the time, that the gaming magazines did, that X-Play definitely did, that most of G4 did. You know, like the era of like early Jackass and Punk'd and all that, like a lot of that does not age well. Yeah.
Like much later X-Play, still with the same host, like became very, I guess professional in the sense, even though they still had a bit of the, it was still personality driven by Morgan Webb and Adam Sessler. But that was more of the show that apparently that they wanted to do since the beginning. They wanted to do, you know, just like a TV show about video games that was taken seriously, but especially early X-Play was a lot of like comedy writers doing bits and stuff like that. So yeah, early X-Play has not aged well at all.
I mean, early when it was still called GameSpot TV and it was just Sessler and it became Extended Play before it became X-Play. Like even that was not to. I know we have a 4-year age gap, so not to be like when you were a toddler and I was watching it and no, but yeah, like it's really interesting to watch, like to chart like the ZD TV to Tech TV to G4 like lineage and how X-Play was always supposed to be like the cool MTV show, and then they had like Screensavers, which became Attack of the Show essentially. That was like much more like, well, Attack of the Show is a little more of that same edginess, but Screensavers was very like by comparison wholesome, kind of with Leo Laporte and Patrick Norton. Yeah, man, I felt so cool when I was like 7 or 8, and we had digital cable at my house, and we were able to get like ZDTV and Tech TV, and that's where I saw like footage of E3 for the first time. And in parallel with that, I had my GamePro subscription and my EGM subscription and my Nintendo Power subscription. And I would buy imported Nintendo specialized magazines from the UK at Barnes and Noble called like Cube was one of them, I think. And it was just like I was so like in it, like that whole era of like game coverage in every way, shape, and form. It's very nostalgic looking back on it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You were gonna say something, Angel?
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Well, like my brother and I pretty much saved a new slot of the game every time we encounter a new save spot. So if you ever come over,
shut up, Angel.
The water temple, we could actually run it back.
Oh man, we're supposed to be hanging out next weekend, guys. So Kevin, you have 5 days to brace yourself for this.
We're supposed to be hanging out next weekend?
Yeah, I think on Saturday, right?
Next Saturday?
Yeah.
The 8th, I think. And everyone listening to the podcast, you can figure out where you're... Yeah, this coming Saturday, yeah.
Okay.
And anyone listening to the podcast...
Not do next Saturday.
Oh, yeah, no, this Saturday. If you're listening and you're like, I want to hang out with the Random or Nintendo crew, if you can find us, come on over. We're not going to tell you where we are. There's at least 3 possibilities. Take your shot. Maybe you'll show up and maybe we'll buy you a pizza. Please don't actually do this. Don't dox us. Please. Please don't.
Oh, yeah. We're actually going to be playing the water temple. It'll be great.
Yeah. Yeah. You could fly in from like, I don't know, if you live in New Hampshire and you want to come hang out with us just to play the water temple and spend your time doing that.
Play
come
against
find
the
us.
water spirit more than 2 times, more than 3 times. Yeah.
Come find us.
Cool. I want to talk about a couple of movies that I saw. I'll just talk about one for right now, and then we can get into the other one. But I finally saw The Monkey, which released in theaters, I believe,
like a week ago.
Last weekend. Yeah.
Like I said, finally, it's brand new. Like I don't even think it's been 2 full weeks, but yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah, I've been hyped about this movie since watching Long Legs, because it was written and directed by Long Legs writer and director Oz Perkins, and what was it? Maybe about 2 or 3 episodes ago that I just waxed poetic about how much I loved Long Legs. And so right around that movie's release, it was revealed that he was going to be working on this movie, which is a sort of loose adaptation of a couple, or I think of just one Stephen King short story. And like I said, I loved Long Legs. I wish I could say the same thing about The Monkey. Yeah, so it's a dark comedy horror that follows 2 twin brothers during their early teenage years and their adulthood. So as kids, the twins find a wind-up toy drumming monkey that their dad owned before he disappeared. And their dad, I won't spoil who plays him, but let's just say that like I did the Leonardo DiCaprio from what's that movie? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where like I just pointed at the screen and I like
with a beer in hand.
Yeah, I was like, I did an audible like, no way he's in this. Anyways, every time the twins turn the key on the monkey's back, it'll play the drum, and then at some point, someone either physically or emotionally close to the twins will die. And the deaths range from simple, like decapitation, to something completely absurd, like being trampled to death while in a sleeping bag by a stampede of horses. And then for most of the part, the deaths are like incredibly over the top, and they act more like a punchline than something to be completely distraught over. A lot of this movie has been compared to the Final Destination movies. I don't know if either of you guys have seen it. I doubt you've ever seen them, Jason. I know you don't like horror movies.
Correct, but that's the immediate connection I made when you're describing it. It sounds like the premise of Final Destination a little.
Like to a certain degree, like none of the deaths, aside from like a couple of them, are along the lines of the Rube Goldberg-esque deaths of the Final Destination series.
No logs falling off the back of a truck because it happened to swerve at the exact moment on the freeway where something jumped out and then that caught. Nothing like that.
Yeah, like there's no, or how do I put this? like the death scenes in Final Destination happen after like 3 or 4 minutes of just tension building, with the characters also typically experiencing some sort of torture before they're finally killed. This movie has no tension before deaths. For instance, in one of the deaths, an air conditioner falls into a motel pool right as a female dives into the pool, and you see like the current go through her body as like she touches the pool as she dives in, and she just explodes. Just that's it. There's no tension. There's no nothing. She just explodes, and like the main character like has to duck as her leg is like flying towards them. And then like a little bit later in the movie, a realtor opens a closet door that has a shotgun that's fully loaded, and as the shotgun falls, it shoots her and she explodes into like a million little pieces. And these are very much punchline deaths. They're not deaths where the characters are like agonizing in pain. They're punchlines, you know. Where the movie starts losing me, and I talked to a couple of my coworkers because they also saw the movie, and they felt this exact same way, is the movie starts losing us a little bit when it decides to start being a real movie. Like I said, the plot of the movie revolves around these twins, I guess. Wait, does that work? These two twins? Does that work?
Well,
I think it was just
because it's both
pair
of them.
Twins, right?
Yeah, the pair.
pair of twins?
But the question is it a pair of twins, two sets of individuals, or is it like is a pair of twins, twins, and then other twins, or is it two halves of one set of twins?
Because a twin is like the singular, like he's a twin because he has a twin.
Right. So a pair of twins. Oh, but that's single. So like twins plural would imply
like a pair of shoes is like. The two.
Yeah, we're overthinking this. I think Angel's right.
Okay, you're right, Angel. Thank you. Anyways, so yeah, like I said, it revolves around the twins, and during the second half of the movie, it follows with one of these grown-up twins hanging out with his teenage son that he's going to lose custody to because his ex-wife is marrying Elijah Wood, and Elijah Wood is going to adopt the son. And that stuff doesn't necessarily work in my eyes because it's like a very serious subject matter that's mixed in with this over-the-top comedy horror of two twins who have been haunted by this monkey all their life. And they're trying to keep this monkey from killing those around them. There's still some laughs to be had during the second half, and, the deaths really, really slow down. Not in terms of absurdity, but just like, this movie is a very much front-loaded with the over-the-top death scenes, and there's very little towards the end. But I still think the first half is strong enough for me to warrant this a recommendation to people who like just want to see something a little bit over the top. Like, this is not elevated horror the way that Longlegs was. This is more of a crowd pleaser type of horror movie, even though this movie is getting very mixed reviews in the public eye, or in the general like audience eye. But I still enjoyed it. It's one of those movies that like I really, really liked, but I just wish that I loved. But yeah, Jason, I'd actually recommend you watching this movie. I think you'd enjoy it. It's not scary at all. Like it's barely a horror movie.
Sure.
Yeah, it's more over the top.
I will say, when I went to go see Captain America a few weeks ago, it has a pretty cool display in the movie theater. It's like an animatronic of a cardboard. It's a cardboard cutout, but it's also an animatronic where a monkey's like banging on a drum, but it's like very slowly and like kind of creepily banging on the drum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fun fact about the monkey. In Stephen King's short story, it was actually a cymbal crashing monkey, but they couldn't do that because Disney got the rights to that monkey for Toy Story 3.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Yeah, because that monkey is in Toy Story 3. That's right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So that's why he's now on a drum. But yeah, I might as well check it out with A-List.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of those people that always are like, oh, you have A-List. Did you know?
It's kind of crazy that it's just like a monkey with a symbol, not so much like, I guess the design was maybe still too close.
Well, the little hat, among other things.
But I'm wondering,
does he have a little hat?
Isn't that like a real toy that wouldn't be in the public domain unless, Disney maybe did make enough changes to, I don't know.
It would have to be over 100 years old to get into the public domain.
Maybe it was for the best. I don't know
if the toy is that old.
I mean, the drum sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, nothing about really the instrument that this monkey is playing is like the least of is like not important at all. And I think the drumming actually works a little bit better, especially towards the end of the movie, where the drumming does is important, I guess, to the story. But yeah, I mean that's the monkey. That's I would recommend it. It wasn't my favorite horror movie, and it's not my favorite horror movie that I'm going to be talking about in this episode, but yeah, liked it well enough. So nice. Going from that,
Kevin, would you see it a second time? Do you want to run it back water temple style and see it with me sometime?
Oh yeah.
They're going to call it now. Run it back water temple.
Do you want water temple?
Want to water temple this thing?
Yeah, I
mean, people that play Zelda will get a
we
different
should do
idea
it sometime.
If you guys are up for it, we could watch this weekend, right before some hangs.
I'm down.
Yeah, I think you guys will get a kick out of the actor who plays the father.
Now I'm intrigued. Yeah, no, I'm definitely. I'd be down. And again, anyone that wants to find out where we are and join us, please don't dox us. But we can't. We're making plans on mic to you indirectly. So I guess you're welcome.
Tempting the internet is like the last thing you want to keep doing. But
no, I know. But here I am, being a fool. So.
All right, for sure.
It just feels rude. You know when you are making plans and you're in a room with people and you don't want to be rude to the other people, so you just kind of include them in the plan anyway. I feel like that's kind of what we're doing here.
But you're doing.
That's what I'm doing. No, I mean, if we were just making plans without inviting those who are overhearing those plans, it would feel rude. So the only thing ruder is if we get doxxed. So I'm going to stop this bit now because I really don't want to die this weekend. So,
okay, let's move on to Cobra Kai. Both of you are watching the show.
Yeah, or watched past tense. Yeah. If you want to talk about a show that that escalates things to absurd degree, like I was doing with that dumb doxing joke, Cobra Kai escalates things to absurd degrees. Angel, you just finished, right? Like recently?
Yes.
You haven't talked about Cobra. You introduced me to Cobra Kai, and you haven't talked about your thoughts on it for quite a while on the podcast. So what did you think of it all, with all said and done? And are we wading into spoiler territory, or are we going to keep it spoiler-free to start?
Spoiler-free to start. I think overall, as in, taking it all as a whole with the ending and everything, I really, really liked it. I think like you said, it got a little over the top, way more than the movies ever did, but it was fine. At some point, you just kind of embraced the ridiculousness, but as cheesy as it sounds, it didn't lose its heart, and as many, and I guess very light spoilery, but I mean, it's kind of expected, but you did get a good amount of little pep talk moments in the last few episodes, and a lot of them felt a lot of the emotional highs that I got from that felt really earned when you do think back at everything they put these characters through, and it felt like man, they really did kind of capture the spirit of the Karate Kid. It felt like this show managed to create, as convoluted as it kind of felt at times, like 4 different realities of the Karate Kid. It's man, you could argue Robbie was the Karate Kid. You could argue Miguel was the Karate Kid. You could argue Samantha was the Karate Kid, or Tori was the Karate Kid. They all have these arcs that just kind of wrap up in a nice way. I think there's maybe one that I just felt like oh, okay, I guess he got a happy ending, even though he didn't really feel like he deserved it.
You talk about what's his name? The guy the brother bullied.
No.
Dropped his story.
The best friend, the one that was supposed to go to MIT or something.
Oh, the 2 of them, yeah. No,
Yeah,
they got closure. They got closure. I feel.
No. That's right. I felt like his closure was less so deserved. He just kind of like
Oh yeah.
didn't fully
They
get his
also went on
comeuppance.
a they also went on a weird tangent where they were like programming their own like hologram AI, which I was like, what? Like the show's never had like a slightly sort of near future thing like that. That was weird.
Yeah, they tried something, but point is, yeah, like I loved how they all tied it together. I really liked, and I guess this is kind of like a spoilery thing, but at one point, while I was enjoying the show, there were obviously like more than one point in the series where it felt like it wasn't really like the name didn't fit the show that well. It did in the beginning. Then at some point it just was more like Daniel's show. Then it just felt like oh, I guess it's not really about like Cobra Kai, just the enemy. But while it was a very like interesting way that they brought it all back, I do like that at the very, very end it came back as like, oh, okay, it really was Cobra Kai, and it really was like Johnny's story. Like the way they kind of like nailed that landing, I thought they nailed that landing. It was really well done. Like,
if I may, you listed off 4 potential Karate Kids. That could have been the main Karate Kid. I would like to submit a 5th. He's a Karate Man now, but Johnny.
Actually, yeah, great call. You literally
Karate Man.
They should have busted a Winter Soldier and the Super Arm.
I know, right?
Oh wait, no, Falcon and the name.
Yeah. But
like where you think the Karate Kid, and then it just like flips over to the Karate Man.
The Karate Man. Yeah, but no, it the way they. So the thing with Cobra Kai is, like you were saying, I feel like you really had to be like along for the ride, especially when it got ridiculous. I mean, the show is very like nudge and wink, like this is all over karate. Isn't that silly? Like all this for karate, isn't that silly? Because they kept having Daniel's wife, who Daniel, for those who aren't familiar with the show, the Karate Kid from the '80s movies. His wife is always like, all this over karate, like, you know, all these people are getting so like involved over karate, like. The show is treading very close to being like Fast and Furious, where it's like, oh, are they gonna go to space for karate? Like, is that what happens next? They just they fight on the moon? Like, that's how close it was getting. And they reeled it back, and it was still kind of like goofy fun. But yeah, the way they brought it back around to Johnny, and the way they kind of sealed it as like, this is his story, his arc, his I guess redemption in a lot of ways. I thought was really cool. And then they really, slight spoiler, they really sort of put period at the end of the sentence. There's a credit scene where it's just Daniel, and I'm just gonna spoil it, whatever. It's just Daniel and Johnny getting lunch together, and there's a fly, and everything that Karate Kid the movies have taught you is, oh, there's like this like kind of like Zen way to approach it. But no, this is Johnny's show and Johnny's story, so he just swats the thing out of the air with his bare hand, unlike in Karate Kid where, you know, they try and grab it with the chopsticks, and he just like smacks it down. And that's literally the final thing the show shows you is, yeah, this is still Johnny's way and Johnny's story and his arc. Because he's the one that got to get the final fly kill, not Daniel with the chopsticks like in the movies in the 80s. So I thought that was kind of a nice, like, period at the end of the sentence to the entire thing. Yeah.
One thing that was both one of his biggest strengths and ended up just being, like, a footnote towards the end was, like, the cameos for sure. And I mean, they're not even cameos. Like, I mean, a lot of these were obviously like full-fledged characters. Like, and I remember a little before we started watching Cobra Kai, like before we even like decided to jump into it, and my sister and brother-in-law and I, like, we watched all the Karate Kid movies. I think except for the next Karate Kid. So we saw 1, 2, and 3, maybe 4. Maybe there were just 3.
Well, it worked out you didn't see Next Karate Kid because that's the one they forgot to do a cameo for. So.
Yeah. Well, we saw, like, you know, those first 3, which is all you really need to watch. And we really, really like those. You know, actually, even the fact that they brought it back with You're the Best Around was really great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the training montage. Yep.
And, you know, we love those. We had seen them. We saw all of them, like, growing up. So they were already kind of nostalgic, but we didn't really remember the nuances or just, like, the main plot points. And yeah, there were some silly points in them, but they were just really great, like, underdog stories, which are just always really fun. Or at least I realized I really love those kinds of stories. And, of course, in the beginning, you know, you get the, you know, Kreese is back. Oh, man, look at that. He's the exact same character, same actor, it's like time passed in real life, and it's great. Sequel, oh, the villain from Karate Kid 2 is now like a good guy. Bad guys become good guys. Good guys basically remain good guys in the show. Maybe they flip up a little, but they still become good. But yeah, you get that introduction, and that's a pretty cool. There's some callback characters that hold a lot of weight, but as they kind of burn through almost all of them, like Terry Silver obviously being a very big deal when he's introduced, and he was a one-off villain for the third one, but
they made him much more in this. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's his story is almost kind of tragic in a way too, because he kind of didn't really want involved in this, and he kind of just got like turned into like the mega villain, and even Kreese somehow like getting, I wouldn't say completely redeemed, but like he does the right thing at the end. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But point is, like, towards the end, they were just like throwing some characters at you because they've already gone through all the big ones, like that were just like at one point, like Daniel gets kidnapped, and you're like, oh, this dude with long hair, he's just like he's just like some muscle. But then they briefly flash back, oh, he was one of the bullies that was like also punking Daniel in the third film, and you're like, oh, okay. And you're in the tournament, and there's like referee dude, just some dude.
That was the most egregious to me, and they flash back to him also being the referee, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, you're like cool. Do you really expect anyone to remember that? Like, usually,
that's why they did the flashback, because they're like, hey, we went
and even
deep.
then, like, I'm not like, I guess that's what he looked like. Like, like,
so,
I don't even remember these characters. Like,
so is that like in Spider-Man Far From Home, where it's revealed that Mysterio's working with a lot of people from the first Iron Man movie?
Yeah, kind of. Even it's kind of like that, but even more so, because they just like they show the referee like he's like, all right, we're gonna start, and then they immediately flash back to a clip from the A's movie, and he's basically like, all right, we're gonna start. It's like, that's the guy. Yeah, but I mean, he didn't say the exact same dialogue, but the shot was almost identical, and they had to be like, see. And like literally like play the clip in the middle of the moment.
Yeah, it's almost like they were expecting you to go like woo, like what a great callback. But by then it's like yeah, it's fine. Like,
like at least with Far From Home, it was a bit more like they tried to make it more like plot relevant in a way. This one was just kind of like, it's the guy.
It almost felt appropriate in Far From Home that you didn't remember these people, because wasn't that kind of the point that like there were like these people in the background that. Number you wouldn't pay attention to, and it's like, oh, they're actually all teaming up to be this bigger thing.
And this was literally just, here's a ref being a ref, but you saw him 4 years ago, and now he's here again.
Yeah, there was like, in the last episode, this is not really a spoiler, but like, they keep cutting to these people at a bar, and I kept thinking, like, are these someone that I should remember?
I had the same issue. They are, actually.
Are they like the writer, or like, some kind of like...
No, they are... They
you actually looked it up?
So they are from season 1 when they opened the dojo of Cobra Kai. They are the guy next door who runs the like 7-Eleven, and it is the pawn shop guy who Johnny keeps taking who got his laptop from.
Wow, I forgot about the pawn shop guy. I mean, I know he went to a pawn shop multiple times, but
yeah. It was again, I think for the full circle nature of it all, they brought back like the people from early on in the show. The show's very like inward looking in a lot of ways, so that it makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, it makes sense, and like sure, like, but I guess it's funny because at least the pawn shop guy did come out a couple times, even towards the end, and I still couldn't remember him.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him at all.
So the fact that they kept cutting back made me think that he was even more like a bigger character than that. But...
Nope. But I will say, the show's definitely self-aware, first of all. Like in that same scene where they have like the fly and he like swats it versus using chopsticks, they pan over to their table and there's some guys talking about how they should convert Back to the Future into like a TV like, oh yeah, like the Valley, like in Back to, like the whole dialogue for like a couple of seconds is basically the pitch for Cobra Kai of being Karate Kid reimagined, but Back to the Future, which I thought was kind of funny. So even in world, there's people trying to latch on to 80s nostalgia. But another thing I was going to say is, to your point about the cameos and stuff, they got a little heavy-handed at the end, but the show had this amazing ability to take a single line of dialogue or like a single scene from a single movie that happened in the 80s trilogy and be like, let's flesh that out into a whole story arc for the majority of a season. And 9 times out of 10, it felt organic and it worked and it didn't feel forced. And that, like the way to I want to say weaponize nostalgia, because they weren't weaponizing it in a negative sense, but the way they were able to twist a little thing that happened in one place at one time and make a whole new thing out of it that feels true to the show and true to the movie was a really cool talent, I guess you could say, that they had.
Yeah, this show is definitely gonna, especially because it actually ended. It's definitely gonna live on as just one of the best examples of a revival, just a straight up revival, after so long. Because so many have tried and failed miserably. Apparently, that.
Oh yeah,
80s, 90s show tried doing a thing. I mean, that wasn't a movie, but I mean,
they tried to.
Something. I feel like there's a couple that I'm forgetting.
There's multiple examples, but this one hit the sweet spot, even though it did get very ridiculous at times.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
and it's you said it's over.
You weren't too far off with describing it as an anime for sure, but.
Oh yeah, it's a real life anime. The way, especially in the final season, which they split into 3 parts, which are each 5 episodes, and the entire arc of all 3 parts is one tournament. The Sekai Taikai. One tournament takes 15 episodes over the span of 9 months to release to get through. It's Dragon Ball Z, and it's all just fighting and bloodshed, quite literally a couple times. So yeah, it's very much like a real life anime, but it's also really fun to say Sekai Taikai. Apparently it just means tournament, which is also even funnier. But it's fun to say. What was I gonna say? Though?
It's funny because this show, it's kind of I'll compare it to Symphonia. There were a lot of moments that were very frustrating. Because there's especially it feels like it was more towards the beginning, where especially with the relationship drama with the teens, where so much of the drama was basically, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's almost like teen soap opera. This person said this thing, and now this person's doing that thing. Yeah,
where it feels like it's forced just because it's this person just walked in on the right sentence on the right time.
There's a lot of circumstantial serendipitous. Yeah, but now this plot point is happening because
but there's
it needed to happen.
What's that vocabulary word that literally means contrived? There's a lot of contrived drama just because if they had just stood a little longer, or if the person is oh, I can explain. And instead of saying the thing right away, they say something else first, which just makes it worse because the story demands it.
That's true.
There is some of that, and some of that I know for a fact will be a note for some people. But, just like Tales, if you stick through it and you did enjoy the first movies, there's definitely a reason to keep going.
And they will keep going. You mentioned this is the end of Cobra Kai. Yes and no. In May, there's Karate Kid Legends coming out, and it is set in modern day Karate Kid Cobra Kai canon. It's set, I think, a few years after Cobra Kai, but Ralph Macchio's back as Daniel, and there's talk. I don't know if in a real capacity. There's what?
What about Zapka?
Well, there's talk of them integrating other characters in other ways in future projects. So it's not truly over. This is.
I wasn't even. I was really? They're gonna make another movie? I guess Jackie Chan is cool.
This one's kind of this actually looks kind of cool. It's like a mashup of the reboot and the original.
Yeah,
and then
I kind of don't mind only because.
Is there Alfred already?
There is.
Yeah. Oh, wow. There is.
I actually did really like the Karate Kid with Jaden and Jackie. I thought that one was really cool. It was just it's the same plot, but just told in China instead of the Valley and Japan. But it was similar but different enough that it felt like its own thing.
And I think this one merges the Chinese and the Japanese ethoses of their fighting styles.
Yeah, because for some reason,
they're both training the kid.
Jackie knew I was gonna say Hamato Yoshi, Ninja Turtle Sensei.
Well, of course he knew. The Sekai Taikai was apparently a worldwide phenomenon that was on everyone's mind.
Well, to be fair, Jackie Chan did play Master Splinter in the newest Ninja Turtles, so the wires being crossed there is a little justified. But yeah.
Yeah, it's Cobra Kai. It's a fun ride. It's the best way to sum it up. It's a fun ride. It's a ride in every sense of the word. Like it has like its ups and downs. It's kind of more just like whimsy than anything else, but it has some serious moments and it's fun. It's fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
So switching gears, I'm going to talk about the other movie that I saw over the last 2 weeks.
Back to horror we go.
That is a movie called Companion. So it's a movie that released really early. I think it was a January release. And January is typically like the dumping ground for a lot of movies. But this is not a dumping ground movie at all, at least in my opinion. It's another dark comedy horror movie with a little science fiction twist starring Sophie Thatcher, who I've never seen in anything before, but apparently she's in that TV show Yellow Jackets on Showtime. This is the first time that I've ever seen her in anything.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen her in anything either, but Rachel watches Yellow Jackets, so I must have seen her without realizing I saw her.
Rachel Thatcher?
Sophie Thatcher.
Sophie Thatcher?
Mm-hmm.
She's the lead, I believe, and yeah, she's a blonde in Yellow Jackets, I think.
I think she's a blonde just in general. In this movie, she's got dark hair.
Yeah, because I looked up this movie and there's a dark-haired person on the poster. So,
yeah, and so it stars her and Jack Quaid of The Boys, of The Boys fame.
Stuff lately,
and of everything. He's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
He'll also be in Novocaine in a couple weeks.
Yep, and there's a couple of other actors that like you've seen in other movies and TV shows that I just don't exactly know the names of off the top of my head. So I'm going to give the spoiler alert right off the bat because the twist of the movie is revealed 10 minutes in, assuming you haven't seen the trailers, because the trailers, 1 minute into the trailers, reveal the twist of the movie. And by ruining the twist, I'm not ruining the movie at all. So just so you guys know.
So it's like a Winter Soldier, Captain America kind of situation?
Yes, exactly. So essentially,
except they waited till the end of Captain America to make the quote twist happen. So, yes.
So the movie follows Jack Quaid's Josh's character and Sophie Thatcher's Iris's character. They're a couple in this, and they essentially spend a weekend with friends at some extravagant mansion that's owned by Josh's friend's older criminal boyfriend. If you're able to catch that.
I know what movie you're talking about now. I remember the trailer. Popping up on YouTube. Yeah. I know.
So,
all right, go on.
At one point,
I still do not. Please continue.
Yeah, at one point, that criminal boyfriend tries to actually sexually assault Iris, and she kills him in self-defense. And as she panics to Josh and everybody else at the mansion, Josh tells her, Iris, go to sleep, and she shuts down, revealing that she's actually a cyborg.
What? Okay.
Yeah. That's as much as I actually want to reveal, because there's still like a few fun twists left in the movie that make this a very enjoyable ride. I enjoyed this movie more than I enjoyed The Monkey, and that movie I was hyped about. The movie is really, really funny, and at times feels like a comedic version of Ex Machina. Did I pique your interest?
You have my attention. You have my attention very much. Yep.
And while it doesn't have the same message of Ex Machina, it still contains some of the themes that Ex Machina has, such as how like AI and sentience can lead to these robots to like do some bad things. But it's, while Ex Machina was basically focused on, Oscar Isaac's characters and Donald Gleason's characters, the focus of this movie is on Iris herself, on the robot, on the cyborg, which is, a different perspective from the one that we got from Ex Machina. Sophie Thatcher, as of this movie, is a new crush of mine. She's really good, and she's pretty hilarious in the movie, especially There's one scene where she has to start speaking German at a highway cop. And then Jack Quaid plays Jack Quaid, which I have no issue with, but I know some people do. Angel, your brother, can't stand Jack Quaid, which is something that I will eventually go to blows with him. And then the rest of the supporting cast is also like really, really funny. Yeah, that's as much as I want to talk about this movie. I really enjoyed this movie. It's not perfect. Like, I wouldn't call it like one of my favorites, and I wouldn't call it one of the year's best, but it felt like a breath of fresh air. And like, just like The Monkey, like, this isn't elevated horror. It's just like a good, solid comedy horror movie, with like enough fun twists that make the entire ride like something that you just want to keep watching. And it's relatively short. I think it's an hour 30, which is like the perfect runtime for a movie with this kind of subject and plot. It's a great movie. Like, this is an 8 out of 10 movie for me for sure. Don't know when it's coming to like free streaming services, or, well, not free, but like streaming services. You can rent it right now, but still not on any streaming services.
I'm just going to throw it out there. It might still be in theaters if we wanted to do that on Saturday instead of Monkey.
I don't know if it's still in theaters.
It's at least in theaters until Thursday. Oh.
Well,
it leaves everything Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. Try to catch it with that's
what I'm thinking. Rachel. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
It's it's a very fun movie.
The second you said Ex Machina, I mean, second you said Cyborg, but then when you said Ex Machina, I was like, oh, I'm so in. Yeah. I'm a simple man. Yeah.
A lot of comedy horrors have been coming out that have been like decent to really, really solid.
It is interesting how movies go in waves, right? Like Ants and Bug's Life, Shark's Tale and Finding Nemo. This isn't the first time, it's not the last time. I think there's even another horror movie coming out that's kind of a comedy that's also set at a house where some people go, kind of like this, with Paul Rudd. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like about Death of a Unicorn. That's kind of a horror comedy as well.
I have not heard about this at all.
It's, so Death of a Unicorn, I'm literally looking it up to make sure I get this right. It's Jenna Ortega and Paul Rudd, and they face killer unicorns, and they're at some house. And it's a horror comedy, and it comes out in like 3 weeks.
Well,
I'll read the Wikipedia. It stars Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega as a father and daughter who accidentally hit and kill a unicorn, causing it to be hunted down by its mate. So there you go.
Interesting.
And it happens when they're en route to a crisis management summit at someone's house or something like that. So, yeah.
I also just realized that Mickey 17 comes out this weekend.
The new from Mr. Parasite himself. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Man, we have a lot of movie choices. Maybe we do that on Saturday.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Let's spend more time on the air. No, yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Now let's get to the final thing on the docket here. Pokemon Presents. Jason, take us through this.
Yeah. So, a belated happy Pokemon Day to one and all. Pokemon Presents came out on Pokemon Day, which was last week. Oh, also, I don't think our episode will happen before it. An early Happy Mario Day to one and all. That's next Monday, March 10th. And come to think of it, and on time, as of this recording, happy anniversary of the Nintendo Switch Day to one and all. Today's 8 years since Switch launched. So many Nintendo holidays. But anyway, Pokemon Presents happened last week. It's their annual showcase where they just run through what's new. And this year, did either of you guys watch it? Or am I giving like a full summary here?
I watched it.
Okay, and I know Angel saw parts.
Yeah, I pretty much thumbed through the timeline to the games relevant to what I'm interested in and just watched those parts.
Okay, well, you didn't miss a whole lot outside the parts that you... Well, what were the parts you were interested in? Because I don't think you missed a whole lot. There are only two actual, 2.5,
I saw
maybe,
the Pokemon Concierge thing.
Great little charming show.
I was half present for the Pokemon Sleep stuff. I guess I still don't know if it's something that's been out or not. But I guess
it's been out for like a year, but that's cool.
All right, and then after that.
Also, I like how you're half present for something about sleep. That's very fitting, on theme. Yes.
And then I saw the Pokemon Champions trailer.
Okay,
and that's it. Everything else was not relevant.
Well, for what it's worth, everything else was very rapid fire. So these showcases are almost always like, here's a random show or movie, which they did with Pokemon Concierge. Here's a bunch of updates on our 10,000 different mobile games we're running. And to be fair, they sped up the updates of the mobile games. It was very rapid fire this go round. In fact, it was so rapid, they would flash information about one of the promo events, like one of the limited time events on screen for like a second, and you couldn't read it because they took it down so fast to get to the next promo thing for the next game. So I had to like pause it to be like, oh, there's Eevee evolutions in Pokemon Cafe ranks. Okay. But the biggie on the mobile side was they did announce and shadow drop essentially, like that night, a new half expansion of sorts for Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket, which kind of caught me by surprise because I felt like we just got the last expansion not that long ago. Am I crazy? It feels like it was pretty recent. But yeah, they gave us Triumphant Light, which I feel like it's kind of like how Mystical Island was like a half step towards a big expansion. This one's like the half step from Space Time Smackdown. Like it's a smaller set. It's themed around a more specific thing. Like
yeah,
it's a
exactly
lot of like
what it is.
Yeah, right.
The only difference, that half measure between big sets for sure.
Yeah, the only thing I thought was interesting here is they actually introduced a new card ability this go around for those who do the battling side, and ranked battles are coming in March. They have this whole like linking thing where you can link abilities if you have an Arceus or Arceus, however you say it, card. Is it Arceus or Arceus? I used to know, and then I started doubting myself. Arceus. I want to say that's what I thought. Okay. Yeah, so if you have an Arceus, you can do like these link abilities between the cards. So that's something a little more than what Mystical Island did, where it was literally just new cards. This one actually introduces a new mechanic. So I guess that's kind of cool. I was kind of hoping... Yeah, go ahead.
One of my coworkers pulled an Arceus EX on his first pack. And,
okay, not bad.
Immediately got a second Arceus EX from a Wonder Pick. I have yet to get any goddamn EX cards from this goddamn expansion pack.
I actually don't recall if I got any EXs. I think I got a couple from this one already.
Man, this goddamn game.
It's I will say they are taking feedback. Like as much as people have issues, the whole trading thing that I ranted about a few episodes ago, they put out a statement like the day after my rant, clearly in response to me and me alone, saying basically, they're going to reassess this. When they did the update for the new Triumphant Light, they also gave a ton of like trade currency, and they keep giving more trade currency. So like they're kind of learning as they go a little here, which is nice. But yeah, it doesn't look like, I feel like I got an EX. I'm trying to see. Maybe not. But yeah, they are trying to be better, and they're trying to move faster. Like the fact this came out as fast as it did, it does feel like it was a response to people saying it took too long before. I kind of wish almost it was a little slower, because I feel like they do timed events for each expansion pack, then they move on to the new expansion, do more timed events. And there's a part of me that really just wanted them to do like a Bidoof thing for the last expansion when they introduced Bidoof, like a icon you can get, or a coin, or a card sleeve, or something Bidoof. And we moved so fast out of Space Time Smackdown that I feel like we missed the Bidoof boat, unless they do it for Bidoof Day in July, if that's going to be a thing again. So maybe we'll see. But yeah, so that was kind of like the mobile stuff in Pokemon Presents. Not a lot of sorry, I'm selfish. Not a lot of Bidoof in Pokemon this year. There's years that Bidoof was in everything they did. This is not one of those years. He was a silhouette for a millisecond in the presentation. That was it. None of the games tie in. So you're always in my heart, Bidoof. Anyway, the stuff they announced is actually interesting. Angel, you said one thing, which was Pokemon Champions. The other was they showed some actual information and gameplay about Pokemon Legends ZA. What do we want to talk about first, guys? Which one seems like the more interesting to dive into?
Between what and what, I'm sorry?
Champions and Pokemon Legends ZA.
Clearly Champions.
Champions the more interesting product, honestly.
I agree. I 100% agree. And that's coming from someone who loves Legends.
What it's going to be, because right now, we're still in kind of sort of speculatory mode.
We know bits and pieces. I mean, exactly. It seems... Yeah, so for those who didn't watch the Presents, in a nutshell, they did this sizzle reel CG trailer hybrid thing where they show, as they do in every Pokemon Presents, they love leaning on nostalgia. Remember when you used to battle each other with link cables? Remember when you used to then battle each other with Stadium? Remember when you used to battle each other with Pokemon Battle Revolution? Remember when you used to, and they kept doing that over and over, building to now, voila, battle anyone, anywhere, anytime on mobile and Switch. So there's this new thing, new product, Pokemon Champions, and it's literally, from what it looks like, Pokemon Stadium, Pokemon Battle Revolution, but as a game as service, as some sort of live service. Unclear if it's free to play, unclear if it's paid. It is interesting. They do say you need a Nintendo Switch Online account to play it on Switch. They only do that for paid games currently, for the most part. I don't think they do it very often for free to plays. So who knows what that signifies. But the interesting thing to me, and I'm curious what you guys think, the interesting thing to me about Champions is they are finally taking the bread and butter of so much of what people care about with Pokemon, the battle system, and they're branching it off into its own game service thing that can live on and be battles and do that core thing and not require buying into every generation of new Pokemon game. It's divorced from that now, which means on the one hand, the core Pokemon games could start experimenting more with their battle systems beyond just like a new gimmick layer like Mega Evolutions or Terra Battle, Terraform, whatever. Like they can go further now and branch out in different directions.
Or they can mix and match them, which could be interesting. They could
can mix and match
right now
them.
We have Megas and Gigantamaxes or blah, 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 you know.
And they did show, to be fair, they did show Megas in Champions, I think. But yeah, they created this fork where basically like they have the battle system that people love, and then they have the mainline games, and they can do whatever they want with the mainline games now because they don't have to keep the battles pure, so to speak, for the sake of the people that buy into the battles, because now they have a battle product, kind of like a Pokemon Showdown, but official sort of vibe, perhaps. And I think the timing of this is super interesting because next year, like this Pokemon Presents are only 2.5 announcements, like I was saying, but next year is the 30th anniversary of Pokemon. The 10th generation will probably be announced. And it's the first time it's on Switch 2. So, because obviously Switch 2 will be out by then. So, one would think. So, there's kind of like this perfect storm of like, if they're going to do like a big, like crazy new thing with Pokemon, they got Champions here on the side to keep everyone that wants pure battles happy. And they can set that up and they can get that service rolling and get that engagement going and get people buying in. They've already confirmed they'll be rolling Pokemon into it. They won't all be available day one. It is going to be a service that expands over time. So they can get people in on the ground floor of that, get them comfortable with that, and then do whatever craziness they want to do for Gen 10. No conflict. Both can live happily. Every type of player can have an experience they want. And even Legends ZA, they're moving that in a different direction because now they're going further with, and we'll talk about it in a bit, but they're going further into the idea of a real-time Pokemon game. The battles are now not turn-based like they were in the original Legends. They are real-time. You can actually dodge attacks in real time or have your Pokemon do it in real time. So we have like 3 forks happening where it's like traditional Pokemons and Champions in terms of battling. Whatever they're doing for Gen 10 will happen, and then Legends will do this kind of other branch of like real-time Pokemon. So it's a very interesting, like they're laying some foundation here, I think, for some interesting stuff. But in terms of Champions itself, Angel, I know you're the guy who's always wanted a battle simulator, which it seems like this might well be. So how are you feeling about it?
It seems like it definitely won't be that. But
you don't think so?
No. The moment that they said it's going to be compatible with home, like, battle simulator means that I get
That's
to literally.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to disagree with that in a sec, but go ahead.
Battle simulator means that I get to just be like, all right, I want to test out this hypothetical team. Pick the Pokemon, pick the level, pick the exact IVs, distribution, the EVs, the moves, the PP, like everything.
Yeah, it's not going to be that. Yeah.
Like which item they're holding. That way I could, basically test out what I think would be a very good team, try it out, and then cool, this works. Then I could actually invest the time to breed the Pokemon, make them legitly, so that I can then use them in the thing. This
it won't be that.
Is, like you said, it's more like a Battle Revolution Pokemon Coliseum, which is really cool. I did really, really, really love Battle Revolution. I love taking the Pokemon I built and just finding a gauntlet of CPU catered matches or like pre-created teams by the devs in this like gauntlet, and that was really fun. But while I do still have a lot of Pokemon in my bank and that kind of stuff, the most fun I would have had would be if it was just the former, where I could just quickly craft whatever random Pokemon team that I want and then just battle, which doesn't seem to be the case because this means I would have to go through all my games and, figure that out and get the Pokemon where they need to go. Which,
here's why I gently initially push back, not so gently, but here's why I now gently initially push back on your point that because it has home integration, it's not no-go on more of a simulator. It integrates with Pokemon Go as well as Scarlet and Violet. Anything that can go into home can go into this. Pokemon Go's whole moveset, EV, like its whole battle structure is very different from like a Scarlet Violet one, and yet both those Pokemon work in this. So I think part of me thinks it's less, you have to make your Pokemon
that's
somewhere
the thing,
else.
Though,
wait, hang on. All right, go ahead. go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, there are certain Pokemon that could only have certain moves based on the game they came from, which makes those Pokemon a lot more special. So, like, a Slurpuff with Belly Drum is one you could only get if
I'm sorry, did you say a Slurpuff?
He sure did.
Yes. A Slurpuff. I love that Pokemon. It's like a melted
it's like a little
candy
dollop
monster.
of, yeah, it's like cotton candy on an ice cream cone.
They seriously called a Pokemon a Slurpuff?
Yep.
I'm guessing it's slang for something that I'm not
Well, a
aware
slur is not a good thing.
Uh-oh. Well,
That's all I'm going to say.
well, I'll refer to him as Sugar Daddy. I think that's what I nicknamed it, and I made it. Anyway, so yeah, this Pokemon can learn Belly Drum only if you teach it to it through Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Because that game isn't really compatible with a lot of the newer games, if you were to get that Pokemon in the newer ones, you just can't have that move. Which, without that move, makes that Pokemon a lot worse, in theory. So, like, it's cool that you could, like, bring them more from a lot of places, but that means that those that have it in Omega Ruby can benefit from it, those that don't can't. Which is why the simulator is really cool, because then if you find out like, oh, it has this move, then you could go out of your way and really get that copy of Omega Ruby and make it. I guess the flip side is if they just give you, I honestly don't mind the non-simulator part if they do provide just like a whole section of the game where you just play with rented Pokemon. Like that way.
Sure, they will.
Which definitely seems like the most likely thing they would do, because every Battle Revolution game has had a version of this where they're all pre-made or maybe potentially even randomized. But at that point, that puts everyone on a even playing field, and it just comes down to how quickly can you adapt to the Pokemon that you have, what they could possibly have, because they could literally have anything. So it's less about memorizing the entire meta and just taking the knowledge that you get as you're battling and then just making the best place based on that, which could be really cool. But we'll see.
See, yeah, that's the thing. You're mentioning Pokemon. I don't know. They showed in the trailer, and I'm trying to find it. They showed in the trailer only certain games Pokemon are coming in through home. Right? Like Scarlet and Violet, Pokemon Go. I want to say there's another one. But, like, they were specific. Oh, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl? No. I don't know. I can't find it. But they were specific about which games work. So I imagine this, and I think your rental Pokemon thing is moving in the direction where I think they're going with this. And if they want money from the Pokemon Showdown scene, which is niche, but, there's a lot of people that love it. They're going to do rentals, and they're going to do rentals with movesets you can't get otherwise. And it's also interesting that you can only import Pokemon into champions that already are in champions, obviously, because they're doing a rollout. And you can't export them back. So you don't necessarily... What?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. I mean...
At least I don't think you can export them back.
Understandable, because, you want to keep them in your mainline Pokemon game to follow you from Pokemon game to Pokemon game. But if they're doing something so, like, definitive, with this are finite.
I'm double checking that you can't export them back. I could
No,
have
I think
sworn
you're
you could.
right, because I remember seeing that somewhere, maybe at the end of the trailer, like a little tagline or something. But
yeah, that's what I'm checking. The Pokemon you send are limited. Yeah, you can only send in Pokemon that are already in Pokemon Champions. It actually doesn't say if you can send them back or not. I'm sorry. I take that back short term.
yeah, but I remember seeing that. Well, anyway,
they said something, right? But
yeah,
my point is
the
like
case, then that's pretty hardcore. That maybe means that they do have bigger plans for it than I may imagine they do. But
to be honest, where I see this thing going, just looking like I was saying about how they're kind of forking the series with Legends and stuff as well. The way I'm reading this, and the fact that this is on mobile and it's like a definitive battle game, the way I'm reading this is they're setting up the video game tournaments to be traditional Pokemon through Champions, whatever new cool battle system there is through Gen 10, and maybe real-time battles, and they could do tournaments across all of them. And if you want to carry the lineage of regular quote-unquote Pokemon battles, Champions will be that, and they're future-proofing for generations to come in the series to continue to have core Pokemon battles. So I suspect if you import things in, or if you're using rentals or whatever, they're controlling what is allowed in this space.
yeah, on the one hand,
Slurpuff with
cool.
whatever, with Belly Drum, probably can't get there anyway, which means they have to, if they wish to include it, have it in there another way, meaning you have to rent it. If they choose to go that route, and they don't potentially let you export them back out, which I suspect they don't, because again, you import a Pokemon from Pokemon Go, it works differently than Pokemon Go. How you export those stats back to Pokemon Go versus Pokemon Scar and Violet, like how does that work? I think it's more just like, these are the Pokemon you raised, and now you can play with them here using the names and the moves and the nickname and the stuff and the accessories that you gave them, versus like your IV training for Champions, if that makes sense. I could be totally off, but it just feels like they're setting up like, just bring over your favorites just to have them type of thing, versus like you have to go back and forth between your games constantly. Because this thing is a live service, and this thing is going to make them a ton of money, and this thing has to be self-contained to a degree in order to do that.
In theory, I'm all for it. The only thing is just like, because I could care less typically about the Pokemon story or the catching aspect of it. Right. So something that's literally like Oops All Battles, like it sounds like perfect.
Oops All Battles. And I could be wrong. I could be reading too much into
this. Or I guess more like Yay All Battles. But the only problem with that is like, because then I'm like, cool. Then I could just play with all the new generations of Pokemon as they add them. But if it turns out that there is no rental Pokemon and you are supposed to import everything, because it is an ecosystem, they want you to play the games. Then it's like, I don't want to play the game to get the Pokemon in here. Then I'm basically like, I guess I'm just not playing this then. But,
and there is an ecosystem for sure. You're not wrong, but I really do think the way that they're branching off the battle systems, like the ecosystem isn't what it used to be, where it's the core Gen 10 game is the battle game. This is now the battle game, and Gen 10 is going to be some amalgamation of what Scar and Violet was doing with some new battle game. Like, it's going to be more than just you buy it for the battles, which is how a lot of people bought Pokemon up to this point. It's going to be you're buying it for a multitude of reasons. If you want just battles, you got Champions. It's kind of how I read it. And the reason I read it that way, to be clear, is whenever they did Stadium, Coliseum, Battle Revolution, it was so clearly a secondary game, right? Like, it was not on the platform with the perks of Pokemon. Pokemon has the advantage of being on a portable, so you could play it anywhere. You could bring it over and battle with your friends. It was very like, Pokemon was a handheld series that was like kind of lighter in graphics and fare and stuff. Champions is a handheld thing you play on your phone anywhere that's kind of lighter. And then you got like the Meteor experience on the Switch. Like, it's inverted. The console's the Meteor experience, and the secondary battle thing is now the portable one, which is interesting. So, I don't know what necessarily it's going to lead to, but it really feels like they're kind of flipping what we believed was the ecosystem for the last decade or two into maybe the inverse of that, if that makes sense. What I'm saying even making sense? I don't know if I worded it well, but it just seems like core Pokemon is now these bigger world exploring type of games that have a battle system, while before it was like, they were you get what I'm saying, right? Like, it feels like they flipped it.
Yeah.
The mobile game is now maybe the centerpiece in some way, or the the stadium game is maybe the centerpiece in some ways instead of being the accessory to the centerpiece, Gen 10, Gen 5, Gen whatever. So we'll see. I could have worded that a lot better, but hopefully that came across. But yeah, so that's Champions. Kevin, you said it was more interesting to you too. What did you think of the announcement?
Of what? Of Champions?
Yeah, you said it's more interesting of the two.
Yeah, just because I don't think ZA looks all that good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Could we talk about ZA actually? If
that's the end of the episode. Stitcher.
Hold
Apple
on.
Podcast,
Nope.
Google Podcasts,
No. So
iHeartRadio, everywhere you get your podcasts. Angel, take us away.
I swear to God, if you guys hit stop on this recording, ZA, I'm with you, Kevin, and I don't know why I'm with you. Here's the thing about ZA. Everything about it, all the pieces, all the components sound promising and seem promising. That real-time battle pivot they're doing, this is the closest a Pokemon game has been to like how the anime has always presented Pokemon battles. And it goes hand in hand with the fact that you can real-time catch and see Pokemon in the environment. You don't even when Scarlet Violet came out, Legends was the one where you could just throw a Pokeball in real time and just get them. Or you could just stick a Pokemon on them and do something else and come back and get them. Like it was kind of the real-time Pokemon, and they went the extra step with the battle system now, and that's cool on paper. That's super cool. Another thing that's really cool is I like the idea of an urban environment. I think, we see a lot of like you're out in the world, you're out in wild areas, you're out in safari zones. But a lot of fun Pokemon world, like one of my favorite world buildings of Pokemon was the Detective Pikachu movie, and there are world building cities. So it's cool that you're in a city. Like I like on paper that idea. Also, like the game does look visually a lot better than Legends in terms of details and texture and details and graphics. It just looks more like they had more time to make it. I do like the watercolory look of Legends Arceus, but for sure it was kind of empty. It was kind of plain. It was kind of, the textures are kind of bland. Like this looks more real, or not real, but more like alive. Like it seems like that seems like a nice addition, a nice evolution. And yet, something about the sum of its parts has just left me whelmed. Like, not underwhelmed, but whelmed. I don't know. Like, I guess I'm not hyped. I'm just curious if even that, like, it's really weird because everything, all the bullet points on the back of the box, like, new environment, I don't know. It's something about it. I can't put my finger on it, but I just was not that blown away by ZA. And that was their big finale for Pokemon Presents. And, Kevin, you're saying it didn't look that great. And I'm not in disagreement. I don't understand why, like, everything about it, it should be great. The puzzle pieces are all there. They're just maybe not put together quite right. Like, I don't know. It's really weird. Like, I really like the urban thing, but I have some reservations, like I was saying the world building, but I do have some reservations about, like, the variety the city will allow, especially with like art of the map already being released. Like the whole idea of like they're trying to make a city where Pokemon and humans can live in harmony, and then there's these like pockets of the city where Pokemon can be running amok, but like not like in other parts of the city, and then you just like cross a barrier and you're in like a slightly more lush version of the city. How many different environments can you make that are lush versions of the city? Like I'm sure they're gonna do. You can go underground at some point. They showed that you can scale buildings and like go up, like teleport up to the top of buildings. Like it's actually kind of funny because Legends Arceus very much felt like Pokemon, like Game Freak doing their take on Breath of the Wild. And as we know, Breath of the Wild sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, the new gimmick was, you can explore vertically more now, not just horizontally. Like you go up and down to different levels. And now ZA is like, you can explore vertically now. You can go up and down to different levels. So I thought that was kind of funny. But I don't know how it doesn't seem like it's going to be as diverse of a setting. As much as I love the city thing, like, there's only so much city you can see. Like, maybe they have seasons. Maybe that's how they do it. Like, weather, more elaborate weather than they had in Legends Arceus. I don't know. But, like, that was kind of gave me pause, even though I like the concept of it. I feel like the battles we need to learn a bit more about, even though I like the concept of it. Like, I don't know. Just something about it was weird. Like, I think I even texted you guys. We were talking about right after the presentation. I was even kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this, which is weird. Usually I'm like, I'm into it or it's fine. But I was really like, I don't know. It's really strange. I should be into it. I loved Legends. The concept of Legends was great. I don't know why I'm not into it. It's weird. What are you gonna say, Ken?
For me, it's a mix of things. One, being sort of stranded just in this one town doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in me. On top of that, the decision to have like these wild zones within the city,
it's weird,
is a very contrived way of them not making a proper sort of outer world. I feel like a lot of this game wants to act revolutionary, which in the context of Pokemon, I guess it can be that, but it's just so miles behind of every other open world game. It's miles behind of Power World, like quite honestly.
Yeah, I know. I had that same thought. And that's what's interesting about it too, is like, I feel like it is like Legends, when it first was shown, admittedly was kind of rough shape in the initial trailer, and it wasn't really till the second or third trailer that stuff started to click. But like, the prospect of it when I saw it first trailer was very exciting. And then they kind of did a riff on that prospect after Legends with Scarlet and Violet, which obviously had technical issues, but it was like, oh, it's like some of the ideas of Legends, but like turn-based, exclusively turn-based. And now they're like, all right, here's Legends again, but now it's supposedly this whole other different thing, but it's really more, like you said, not revolutionary. It's more just a sequel. And yet it feels more contained almost than the prequel because of the city thing. As much as I love the idea of world building in a city, because they haven't done that before, the way they did it is just funky. I don't know. I'm really hoping Gen 10 is where they like do the big overhaul for Pokemon, because this isn't a sea change like I think they're hoping it is.
Angel, you were going to say something?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, I just said money, please.
Oh, like that's Game Freak's attitude at this point?
Yeah, because they showed you the trailer, and then they're doing the thing that the Parks and Rec.
Yeah. I will say to Game Freak's credit, they took a breather. They didn't rush out another generation. They took last year off. They're giving this game a little more time to bake. It's coming out late this year. That's what they said, late 2025, which is interesting.
Run at a cool 15 frames a second on Switch 1.
Well, that's what's interesting is late this year is after Switch 2 most likely. So I'm curious if like, is it a dual SKU? Like, is it going to run smoother on Switch 2? Or is Switch 2 going to have backwards compatibility that has some sort of upscaling? So the Switch 1 cartridge is all you need, but will run better on Switch 2. And it's Switch 2 enhanced, quote unquote.
If this game runs at a max 30 on Switch 2, like, Game Freak deserves all the crap that they get.
The more I think about it, the more we know Nintendo has the DLSS patents for like upscaling existing stuff, and we know that they've done it before. The new Nintendo 3DS could like run games smoother that were regular Nintendo 3DS games. So all the pieces are there. Again, it's like the puzzle of the game itself. All the pieces are there to make this be a dual release without a dual SKU, where it just runs better on Switch 2 and can be like a full 60 and can be treated as like a Switch 2 year one launch window, cool new game. They just got to lay the puzzle pieces out right. They just got to connect the pieces correctly. And hopefully they connect them better than how the initial trailer left me, because there are a lot of pieces. I'm like, it's slightly off kilter. So, yeah. But I will say, this was the first trailer in a long time that Game Freak put out that I didn't notice any frame rate drops in the trailer. It happened to Scarlet and Violet, happened to Legends 1. It was smooth this time. Make of that what you will, but it was smooth this time. I will give them that. But yeah, it's Game Freak's in a weird spot. I don't
know if they're in a weird spot as much as they should probably get some new leadership in that studio.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of what I was getting at by a weird spot. Is they're in this spot where like they can keep doing what they're doing and they'll keep selling plenty, but they're slowly bleeding it dry. And even the Champions thing, we're talking about them forking Pokemon. bunch of people are gonna be like, you know what? I'm just gonna play the battle games. I don't need the rest of this at 10 frames. It's fine. Like it's kind of jank. I'm just gonna play the main battle game. And like they're in a weird spot where like they're doing this fork that could allow them to really blow out Gen 10 or even Legends ZA into something more. But if they play it the way they've been playing it up to this point, I don't know if what they think is gonna happen is what the audience is gonna do. You know what I mean? Because they are kind of, for a long time they could be like, oh, we don't care about competitors, we're Pokemon. I don't know how long that can hold if they're taking the core tenet of Pokemon battles and putting it in a separate game. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. And again, I'm personally banking a lot on Gen 10 being really crazy, and I have no idea if it will. It may not at all, but yeah, they're in an interesting position right now. So.
Well, unless we have any more thoughts on this, I think that'll do it for this.
Oh, I do have one last thought.
Sure.
ZA is not a good name. That's all. Like, I mean, Arceus, it made sense in the plot, but like, I am sure ZA will, but like, not a great name.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
It's not. Za. Pokemon Za.
Well,
Pokemon Pizza.
Did they say Z to A or ZA?
It's ZA, I think, because it's just a hyphen. Yeah. So I'm just gonna call it Pokemon Pizza version. Za.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that will actually do it.
Yes, that
Jason,
will truly do it.
Do the housekeeping, please.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, you kind of already did it when you were trying to shut down my za. But, yeah, we are on all the podcast apps if you want to hear our thoughts on future stuff. If you want to hear how our Mario days went when we group after Mario Day. You can follow us on Twitter at Nintendo, and like I said, all the podcast apps, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, not Stitcher. I know you said it, Kevin, but Stitcher has not existed for about a year now, so not Stitcher. But we are on TuneIn if you want kind of an obscure one. Also, we are, of course, on YouTube at Random Nintendo. And individually, we are on socials as well if you want our thoughts. I'm JSR7 on Threads and Twitter. Kevin is KVN Gomi on Blue Sky and Twitter. And Angel is World of Weros with an S over on Instagram. And Angel, I got to commend you. You're doing the daily drawing thing, like actually daily. It's cool to see. Like every day there's a new drawing to look at. It's nice.
I've made it one whole month.
Yeah. I actively like seek them out now. I'm yeah, it's pretty cool. So yeah, that's it for housekeeping and Angel's art. Yeah.
Cool. And I mean, Angel already gave me a final word, so I'm going to throw it back to you, Jason.
Oh, I have nothing.